Hey, this is Evan Longoria of your San Francisco Giants, and you're listening to TortureCast.
You're listening to a podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Let's go, Giants! With hosts Willie Dills, Chad King, Ben Lee, and Eric Nathanson. Dedicated to the greatest team in Major League Baseball, the San Francisco Giants. This is TortureCast. Standing on top, not gonna stop. We came to play, ain't slowing down. Falling on, we're here to stay, and we're stomping on whatever's in our way. I'm feeling like a Giant tonight.
It's Monday, April 22nd, 2019, and this is episode 162 of the TortureCast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. I'm your host, Chad King, and joining me on this wonderful evening into knighthood, I guess you could say, is Eric Nathanson from Georgia. What's up?
Hey, it's still Monday night, so I'm happy. Usually when I look down when we record this late, you say the date, and I'm like, wait, it's the next day. But no, so I'm doing... It doesn't have anything to do with how I'm doing, but I'm doing well. I hope your Easter was good.
Yeah, Easter was fine. I was telling Eric before the show we had quite the kerfuffle with my daughter going on our DC trip. If you could just imagine a big Royal Coach tour bus coming into the parking lot of the school and getting tented over the dip in the curb. So its wheelbase was too long, so the back got stuck in the middle of the road and the back wheels were suspended. So we all had to slam all the kids into everyone's cars and drive them up to the airport. So it was a very, very rushed and hectic Easter, but everything's fine. I trust yours was okay too?
Oh, yeah. Good turkey, good stuffing. We went, Thanksgiving style, but yeah, we had a nice day.
Mm-hmm. That's what we did too with the in-laws. Just ridiculous amount of food up at my wife's parents' home. They always put it out. They used to do seafood, man. They used to serve crab legs, but that part of the family doesn't attend anymore, so no more crab legs. But there's a lot of San Francisco Italians in the family that still work in the wharf in the seafood business, and they have for over 100 years. Certain sides of the family, so they're true original, Italian / Sicilian San Franciscan. So it's pretty cool to have been kind of part of that lifestyle and familyhood. So. Pretty interesting stories, which I will spare from this podcast because this is about San Francisco, but about the professional baseball team that plays there. And they are currently traveling on the East Coast, and they're actually, I guess they're in Canada by now, I assume, maybe tomorrow morning. But let's do this weekend review. The Giants, unfortunately, did not have a good week. They played 6 games. They did have an off day there at the beginning of the trip. They had 3 in Washington and then 3 in Pittsburgh, and they ended the trip 2-4. Unfortunately, it did start out with a win, but the two wins they did have on the road trip bookended 4 consecutive losses. And I don't know, they sit in the cellar in the NL West right now at 9-14, 5.5 games back of LA, third worst record in the NL. They're 4-9 on the road now, and they're 5-5 at home. After that first win in Washington, I know it's just one win, but they've been playing well. They took 3 out of 4 from Colorado, so at this point they had won 4 out of 5. And I was just kind of hoping upon hopes that maybe this was not turning the corner or turning the season around. Nothing as poetic and galvanizing as that. But I was hoping that, hey, maybe this will be the start of a 500 road record, or maybe, God forbid, a slightly winning road record. That was quickly squashed. But, I mean, what were your feelings after that 7-3 win to open up the road trip?
Well, you noted it here. There were 3 home runs in that game. Duggar went deep, Belt went deep, and Longoria went deep. Actually, I think it happened in reverse order, maybe. Mm-hmm. And it was just nice to see the offense. That was the first game after they got shut out 4-0 to Colorado to end that series. So it was good to see them turn it around right away. And I don't know if Bochy being from the area had anything to do with them really wanting to get into it, but I was really impressed with that game. It was one of the times where it's rare for us to see the Giants get ahead. And even in this game, they fell behind early. They fell behind 2-0 and then ended up coming back. But once they did, they can line up their bullpen in the way that they want to. And as we've seen, the Giants bullpen is pretty darn good when they get that chance. So to me, it was the best win of the season overall.
Yeah, it was a pretty complete victory. It was finally a solid victory. I mean, I know they had a 7-2 victory over Colorado. We talked about that last week. But it just felt solid. It was like, okay, this is what you do. You start the road trip on a positive note, you just shut down the Nationals and you just move along from there. But unfortunately, the next day, the Shark got roughed up for 3 in the first, and we were just talking about him last week going, all right, will the real Shark please stand up? And unfortunately, I think this is who he is. He is a little Jekyll and Hyde, like we discussed, and he did go from an excellent start to now he kind of laid an egg. He did settle down after he gave up 3 in the first and 1 in the second. But the big problem was the pen allowed 5 runs in the 7th, the first real big chink in the armor for the bullpen this year. And look, every bullpen's going to have bad innings and crooked numbers. That's just inevitable in the course of 162 games. But it just came at a time where the Giants actually fought back in this game with 4 runs in the 9th on a pair of 2-run home runs, and then actually got 2 more runners on base and had the tying run at the plate with 1 out. But the next 2 batters couldn't get it done, and they lost 9-6. So, that 5 spot really did end up proving to be costly.
Yeah, it was weird to see the bullpen finally give something up. And it was almost a shame that, Samardzija, yeah, he did get knocked around a little bit. But, they showed, this Giants team has fight. That's something that we can't dispute. They really have fight. And we've seen a few of these rallies in the 9th inning come together. The problem is it's become too little too late. Mm-hmm. And, that game specifically, I remember watching that 9th inning going, Parra hit the homer. Longo hit a homer, and it was kind of like, first of all, Parra finally did something. No, it wasn't Longo. It was Parra and Duggar, my bad.
And Duggar, yeah.
Yeah. And Parra, I was shocked when Parra hit the homer, I'll be honest. I really haven't been impressed with him at the plate thus far.
Yeah.
But, the Giants show that they are not willing to quit, and a team like that who is going to fall behind early a lot is ending up having to do it. But you said it was the first chink in the armor, and the biggest chink was Travis Bergen that day. And that was the first time we'd see him really run into problems so far. Trevor Gott gave up a run, and Nick Vincent pitched a scoreless inning. But Bergen was really the one. But he's not going anywhere. He's the Rule 5 draft pick. He is going to stay on the roster because they are not looking to get rid of him. And if he stays on the roster the entire season, Travis Bergen stays a Giant. So it was, kind of to be expected, I guess you could say.
Yeah, he's a Rule 5 guy, and, he's young, and he's going to have those days. He ended up giving up 4 of those 5 runs. But like you said, he's a Rule 5, and they don't want to lose him again. So, we'll see how long he stays on. His ERA doesn't look pretty right now, but that's just because of one bad outing. So I think we got to let the numbers play themselves out here.
Yeah, generally speaking, the Giants' bullpen has been nails. And it's just unfortunate that the day they needed the bullpen to step up because they put together a late rally, it just didn't happen. The Giants are having a tough time getting every facet of the game to be put together at the same time.
Well, again, when granted they scored 4 in the 9th, but they went in down 9-2, and you thought, okay, this game's over. I'm sure most people turned it off, but
I did.
To see them rally to have 4 runs and then put the tying runs, bring up the tying run to the plate. Again, it wasn't a blowout technically. I know their bullpen kind of blew it, but again, they're not getting blown out in these games. They're 15 now, 9-14 right now, 5 games under 500, but they're not getting blown out. They're losing close games. They're winning close games. They're on that thin edge of the razor, and they just need a push in the right direction. And unfortunately, and I'll get to this later after we review all the 6 games, but their hitting wasn't explosive this week, but it was much better than it has been. But coincidentally, their pitching was much worse than it has been. So they kind of offset each other, and therefore you still had a 2-4 week. If their pitching was like it had been before, I think they would have been 4-2 this week.
Yeah, but they not playing in the friendly confines of Oracle Park is where that comes into play. Usually the pitching seems to be able to shut it down at home and not so much on the road. Unfamiliar mound compared, bullpen and then out on the mound. So it stinks that stuff like that happens. But, they look – again, competitive is the word I keep coming back to. Mm-hmm. So, Shark had a tough time. And then Thursday, they lost 4-2. Pomeranz started. And he only lasted 4 2/3 innings because, I said it to you right before the show. You noted it on the next game. But Pomeranz had a problem getting the third out of an inning. And it cost the Giants a victory, in my opinion, because every first 3 runs of the game, bottom of the first inning, Pomerantz gets strikeout swinging, strikeout looking. Then he walks Juan Soto, gives up to double to Ryan Zimmerman. So there was 2 outs, nobody on, and the Nats scored.
Yeah.
In the bottom of the third, strikeout looking, 2 outs, nobody on, and then Rendon doubles and Soto doubles him in. And then let's go to the bottom of the fourth. He walked Yan Gomes, but then Brian Dozier hits into a double play. Then he immediately gives up a home run to Wilmer Defoe. So it's like he's having a tough time closing out innings.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I really don't. I don't know what to make of Pomerantz just yet. He doesn't attack. He nibbles a whole lot.
He does. He nibbles so much. He labors. His pitch count, they've been showing the charts of his pitch counts. I mean, it's always in the 40s into the second inning. Sometimes up to 50 by 2. I mean, he is just, that's why he's only lasting 4 innings or so. It's not necessarily he's given up a lot of runs. It's because his pitch count gets astronomically high because of what you said. He nibbles, and then he gives up a walk and a hit, and then he nibbles, and he finally gets a third out. So it's just like 6, 7, 8 pitches per batter, and it's just killing his pitch count.
It's frustrating sometimes to watch because you're like, just put him away. And I don't know. I hope Kurt Young and Bochy, I guess, can come up. I guess maybe Kurt Young and Matt Herges, I don't know, can come up with something to try to curb that problem because it seems to be a problem with Pomerantz. He's not finishing. It's like he's not finishing anything. And I get that the guy's coming back from injury, but I mean, if he's healthy enough to throw that many pitches, he should be doing okay. And like you mentioned here, the Giants only mustered 5 hits that day. So yeah, maybe they didn't deserve to win on their own, but when you keep falling behind, especially with those soul-crushing, runs with 2 outs, it's just going to kill you. And so they ended up losing that series to the Nats. Again, they had a rubber game where they had a chance to win a series, just like they did in L.A.
It's frustrating because, again, they've only won 1 series against Colorado. They've lost every other series, but they have not been swept. So they've come down to a rubber game every single time, and they can't win it. Or they've lost the first 2 in the series, and they win the last game. Point being, they haven't been able to put away that series victory except for that one time.
Yeah, and again, I don't know what the fix is there. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm talent, but
get a whole new offense.
Frustrating. Yeah, it was frustrating to see because they really, Kipe sounds like he's got such high hopes when it comes to be the third game of a series. He's like, all right, they have a chance to win this series on the road, and maybe it'll get them going. And as we saw, it didn't get them going because that was lost 2 of 4 in a row.
Yeah, it was bad. So then they take a quick trip to Pittsburgh and play on Friday night. Madison Bumgarner's on the bump, and he got his first win the previous start. So you're thinking, okay, maybe this is when Bum's going to settle down. He's, his ERA isn't exactly where you think it should be, but it's not the worst. But sure enough, right in the first inning, things went bad. With 2 outs, you had Cervelli doubling in 2 runs. Then the very next batter, Pablo Reyes, singled in another run, and then the very next batter, J.B. Shucks, singled in another run. All these 2-out hits, like you were just referencing, it just killed him this game. And what's sad is after that, he completely shut it down. And Bumgarner had no issues whatsoever. He ended up pitching 6 innings, giving up 6 hits. 4 of them were in the first inning. All 4 runs were in that first inning. And so after that, he just shut him down. And it's like, what happened in that first inning where Bumgarner could not get that 3rd out before the bleeding stopped?
And it's always talked about with great pitchers, and I don't know if Bum can be put in the great category. He's a very good pitcher. He's great when it matters.
But he's great when it matters, but yeah.
Right. They always talk about getting the great ones early. And that was not the problem for this start because he started out with a line out and a ground out, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think Longo made a great play on a Melky ground ball. Uh-huh. But then he walked Gong. And then Bell got it rolling. And like you said, Cervelli, Reyes, Shuck got it finished off. But it's like that wasn't the case of getting the good one early because it was a self-inflicted wound by Bumgarner by walking Gong with 2 outs and nobody on.
Walking
and it's
Gong
also
was the bad thing, yeah.
It absolutely was. And once again, if they don't fall behind, granted they only scored 1 run, and again, it didn't come until the 8th inning. But I mean, who's to say how different the game would have gone had they not fallen behind 4-0? I know that Jordan Lyles was pitching decently, but I mean, Jordan Lyles is not a shutdown pitcher. It's not like facing Tyon, who they face the next day. So, with Bumgarner, again, he's doing the same thing Shark's almost doing. He's being a little Jekyll Hyde right now. And I don't know if that's because this is the first time. I mean, last year he was injured, so he missed the first, couple months, so he didn't have the rhythm of getting into a season. Or maybe Bums just doesn't have it as much. I know he's lost a couple ticks on the fastball, but he's working in the curveball more, and he's throwing that cutter a lot more. But,
Yeah.
maybe he's just not that top tier pitcher anymore. But then he goes for the next 5 innings and shuts them down and totally flies in the face of that. So,
Yeah.
it's all self-inflicted wounds. It really feels that way. And that's what happens with bad teams. Bad teams will shoot themselves in the foot more than often than good teams will. And many games are lost more than they're won. And I think the Giants are a prime example of that lately.
So Saturday, they go ahead and that was a weird game, wasn't it? I mean, first of all, Derek Holland came in throwing he was nasty. I was watching that game. He looked good. He looked loose. He looked focused. He was dealing that day. But unfortunately, after the Giants tied it 1-1, they go into the bottom of the 5th, and Cole Tucker, one of their prized prospect infielders, got called up because of a couple of injuries to the Pirates. And, Holland made a mistake pitch, and he tipped his cap after the game and said, "Hey, congratulations to the rookie. He hit a home run. Great for him." He had a 2-run blast to center field, did his curtain call, did this whole thing. That's why they were asking Derek Holland if he was upset about it. And he said, no, he hit a home run.
No.
It's his first major league hit, too, right? First major league hit. He had tons of family. His parents were there. The whole thing. Takes his curtain call. Right after that, lightning happens within a certain distance of PNC Park. Their lightning policy goes into effect. They shut down the game after 5. They wait 3 hours and 18 minutes and finally call it because it is an official game. So, Bruce Bochy, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but he said, if we weren't having bad luck, we wouldn't have luck at all. And and I thought that was a great quote because that does seem, they just seem snake bit right now, Eric. I mean, okay, fine, you lose games off of, late inning bullpen stuff. You have bad called third strikes, which we didn't even address. My God, that whole thing with Brandon Bell and some of those calls that were 4, 5, 6 inches outside. I really legitimately think it affected the game and actually could have cost the Giants a win or so there. But for all that bad luck mumbo jumbo to happen, and then for a rookie to come up, hit a home run, get his first major league hit, and moments later the game gets called, as far as suspended, and then eventually gets called, so the Pirates win in official capacity. So the Giants don't even have the 4 innings left to come back from a 2-run deficit. It was frustrating. It was frustrating. So they only got 5 innings in, and it was enough for an official game.
2 things on that. One, we didn't even mention that collision that caused Brian Reynolds and Cole Tucker to get called up. In the Friday night game, I don't remember who hit the pop-up, but the shortstop of the Pirates, I believe Eric Gonzalez, and the center fielder Starling Marte crashed into each other, and it was brutal. They were both just on the ground. Like, I remember sitting up in my seat and just kind of being like, I think that guy shattered his collarbone, and it turns out he did. The shortstop, he's out for a while. Marte, the center fielder, had a bruised inner stomach wall or something like that, they called it. So the whole reason that those 2 rookies were even there was because of a freak accident that happened the night before. So it's really amazing the chain of events that set in, the actions in baseball sometimes, because if Cole Tucker's the shortstop, so if Eric Gonzalez doesn't get hurt, then Cole Tucker doesn't even get called up. And who knows what happens on that Saturday. I'm sure they still get called. And that was my other thing on this. It was a 5-inning game. And something I'm not sure all fans know, and this is just more informative than anything else, when it comes to rain and calling games, up until first pitch, the home team and the league have final say. Once the first pitch of a game is thrown, the umpire has final say on when the game is called. Now, the umpire might do that in conjunction with the MLB office as they're looking at stuff, but it's not like the Pirates tried to be sneaky. The Pirates didn't say, "Oh, okay, we just took the lead. Let's let this just go as long as we can, and then and then call it. It was entirely the umpire's decision, because as an umpire, I've like used that power before, and it sucks sometimes when you have to call games and people are pissed at you, but there's nothing you can do about it. So it's not like the Pirates pulled a fast one, but it sucked that the Giants, who have been hitting the ball later in games and have been getting into bullpens, didn't get that chance on Saturday. Because maybe if they did, we'd be talking about a 3-3 week. But then again, every game we're talking about could have flipped back the other way. So, like you said, like Bruce Bochy said, like my wife's father used to say, if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have any luck at all. And that's pretty much the story of the Giants season so far.
Yeah, it's really coming down, these games, because they are so close, really is coming down to just one play or two plays, and that was one play there. And so the next day, of course, they're trying to avoid their first sweep of the season against the Pirates. Derek Holland. Derek Rodriguez was on the mound, and he's been pitching pretty well as of late. The only blemish on his record is, again, the rookie came up, Tucker Cole, and hit a double down the line, and he ended up going on second, and I think it was on a 3-1 pitch. I don't know, maybe it was a 3-2 pitch. The next guy hits a 2-run bomb and goes up 2-0, and I was watching, because this is when I was at my in-laws, watching the game, going, oh, all these people just showed up, and then this bomb happened, and I blamed it all on them just for fun. I was watching the game, but this is what the Giants needed. They needed something to kind of spark, and here I'm going to go ahead and play a highlight for you.
He hits that one hard to center field. Reynolds sprinting back, looking up. It's gone! That's the big hit the Giants have been lacking, and that's the first home run in a long while for Buster Posey. A 3-run homer puts the Giants ahead 3-2.
And so that was just fantastic. I kind of whooped and hollered at the in-laws, because of all people, I did not expect it from Buster Gerald Posey. Oh my gosh, that was something they need. And just like Dave Fleming said there in the highlight, that is what they need. That is what they've been lacking all season long. And if they had the regularity that more than half the teams in MLB have to hit the long ball at the right opportune time, the Giants would be a 500 team right now, or maybe even better. But this was the proof in the pudding. The pitching was good, held them to 2 runs, and it was just one swing of the bat that won the game for the Giants. So this is the formula they need to follow, but they just don't have the hitters to do it.
Not only was it one swing of the bat, it was Buster and Posey finally getting a home run. I don't have aside from that being his first ever home run against the Pittsburgh Pirates.
What?
It was just,
okay.
Yes.
That's news to me.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Ever. So he is now homered against every National League team, which just shocks me that for some reason they were the last ones, which means I've never seen a Buster home run, because I've only seen Giants-Pirates games at San Francisco. But it was his first home run since June of last year. Mm-hmm. I'm stealing your stat here. 237 at-bats since his last home run. And that's just
237.
But I think that goes to show we've started to delve into the Posey discussion a little bit. But we haven't really gone to it, because I said my take is Buster has obviously struggled at times to start the season, but the guy's coming off major hip surgery. So I'd like to give him a couple months before I start shunning him from the 3, 4, whatever spot in the lineup. And like Dave Fleming said, that's the spark that they needed, and it was good to see. I think it made all Giants fans happy just to see Buster Posey do that, because like you made noise at your did you say in-laws? Yeah. I screamed at the top of my lungs in the house here, when it happened. I stood, hands raised. When Buster does good things, all Giants fans feel good. Yeah,
because it feels like the olden days,
Yes, yes, it does.
The days have gone by, of like, oh my gosh, that's the grand slam off of Matt Latos, one of those feelings. It just is like, that's the guy that's supposed to be doing this stuff. That's the guy that was a Silver Slugger and MVP and Comeback Player of the Year. This is the guy that we've used to rely on, and we just haven't been able to, except for defensively, for the last, I'd say 3 years. So it's frustrating, but like you said, he had major surgery last year, and all indications are that he's feeling really good, but again, getting back into the groove may take some time. So I do think you're right. We need to, they're only 23 games into the season, so I mean they have a long time left. I would give it at least to the 50-60 game mark when they're about a third of the way through the season to really start trying to forecast what his power numbers may be. But I mean, he had 5 last year. Granted, he was shut down with a month or 2 to go in the season, but if he doesn't hit any more than 10 this year, I'm going to be really, really, really concerned about his future power numbers, because this is the time he's supposed to be getting it back. But let's give him a month or 2 and see what happens. But he was also involved in the play that ended the game, which was pretty cool. There was a double down the line. It was kind of funny too, because it was like 2 outs. It was a 2-1 count, I believe. And he just ripped it down the right field line, kind of bounced around a little bit. Duggar fired it into Panic. Panic fired home. And Kang was just, Posey was just waiting for him. He was out by, 6 feet. But I was watching the replay over and over and over again, and the throws were just things of beauty, weren't they? Duggar's throw to Panic and Panic's throw to Posey, they were just frozen ropes, as true as they could be. So it was the way they were supposed to be executed, fundamentals of baseball, and it ended the freaking game in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. It was great.
It was. That is what a relay is supposed to look like. It looked exactly like the relay drills we did in high school.
Yeah.
And he hit him in the chest, and Panic caught it on the correct side of his body, so his momentum carried him through and made the throw. And Panic didn't even have to make a great throw because Gong was so. How slow is Gong?
He looked like he was in slow motion. Yeah.
I didn't understand. The ball, it hit like the base, and then it kind of hung up for a little bit. And that moment that it hung up, I went, oh, crap, that's going to score the runner.
That's what I thought, too, when it bounced around. Yeah, hung up.
Yep, those little instances, that's sometimes the difference between a base and the next base. And I was fully expecting Gong to when the throw came in, I'm like, oh, it's going to be too late. And then I was shocked to see him just coming into the picture when Posey caught it. Yeah. It was nice. The Giants, again, they do pretty much execute the fundamentals in the field. They are one of the – I don't have their defensive stats up, but they are one of the best defensive teams in baseball this season. And it showed on Sunday to secure that – I guess that was yesterday – to secure that victory. Yeah. And like you said, picture perfect relay. Any kids that watch that relay, any parents of kids that are learning to play baseball, if you can go find that play again and show them how if you're an outfielder, hit the cutoff man. At least give your team give your team a chance. If they don't want the ball to be cut, they won't cut it. But if you hit the cutoff man, more often than not, you're going to put yourself in a position to win.
It's so hard with my 9 and 10-year-olds. We're working on it again tonight. Doing those relay throws, I'll put them in lines of 4, and they have races against each other. And so those lines of 4, they're doing the relay throws back and forth 3 times up and down the line. And I keep showing them, position yourself so your glove's on your left side. It's on your glove side. You catch it and you do that circular motion as you shuffle your feet and then throw to the next guy. That's the most efficient. And I swear, obviously, if there's a bad throw on the right side of a right-handed throw or a player, they're going to have to turn around and do an awkward throw. These kids are catching it, instead of on their left side, they're catching them square, and then they're turning to their throw hand on the right, and then they're throwing off the wrong foot. And I'm just like, I don't even know how naturally that feels like the right thing to do. Like, it's just,
yep.
Why would you do that? So it's fundamentals like that, and it was executed to perfection. And what's good about picking up that win is avoiding the sweep, having that 3-run home run. And Posey, I haven't seen him smile like that since a Toyota commercial. I'm being honest. He just
it's true.
He came in the dugout and he actually smiled. It was a weight off his chest. He's like, probably it's about freaking time. Everybody was congratulating him. Bochy acknowledged it, that was a big weight off his chest. So, even he recognized kind of the significance of the moment. Ended up being the game-winning hit. So if he can get going, that would be great. But the Giants still have 2 games left on the road trip. So technically they still have a shot at going 500 on the road. So that's the way I was kind of imagining this road trip after the first win of the trip. Still could happen. It's still in play. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Toronto is no powerhouse, and the Giants will get the benefit of, I have to say it, using the DH the next 2 days. So they'll get Pablo's bat in the lineup because Pablo's been phenomenal. The guy's got 5 doubles
this year.
5 pinch hit doubles in 23 games? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, he's been great. If it wasn't for Longo heating up a little bit here in the last week or two, I'd be like, okay, maybe Pablo can get a few more starts at third, but Longo's been, okay lately, and obviously his defense is really good. So,
it's been phenomenal.
Like I said before, the hitting definitely picked up this week, but the pitching was also worse, so they counteracted each other. The ERA for the entire staff was a 2.75 before this trip. It's now risen to 3.22. Don't panic. It's still third in the majors. Still a good number. That's, of course, combined pitching staff for the staff and the relievers. The relief staff still leads all of Major League Baseball with a 2.23 ERA. However, that's up almost a full half of run in just 6 games. We were just gloating about their 1.77 shiny ERA last week. Again, it was mostly from that 5-run inning and a couple of kinks otherwise. Their starters ERA also rose from a 3.45 last week to a 3.82 on the season now. So both relieving and starters did not do well this week. But the hitting, like I said, did go up a notch. They rose their team average 10 points from 199 to 209. That's still 29th in all of baseball.
Yep.
That for you, those of you that don't know, there are only 30 teams in baseball. So do the math. They're 29th. But hey, what are you going to do? But here's a crazy stat, and I think we recognized this at least a few games ago on Twitter. The Giants are now at 23 games to open a season without scoring any runs in the first inning. The MLB record to open a season is the White Sox at 28 games. So I don't know what's going to happen here unless the Giants can, do this in the next 5 games. They might own the record. And I looked into this and broke down some stats to look at their batting average. In that first inning, they have 7 hits in 73 at-bats in the first inning, all singles. That's an 0.96 average. I mean, I honestly thought it was going to sit, this would be like 170 or a 150, maybe a double or 2, right? Something like that. Obviously no home runs, there can't be, but 0.96 in 73 at-bats. And this is the top of your lineup. This is not 7, 8, 9, guys. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and I don't have a breakdown of all the stats right now. I know that Duggar was 3 for 20. But everybody else was like 1 for 15, 0 for 12, those kind of stats. No one else has even more than 1 hit in the first inning. So the table setters are not getting it done in the early parts of the game. And I was going to write an article about this later this week or the following week. I was looking at each inning, and it looks like so far on the season, the 4th inning is their most productive inning. Not necessarily by runs, but by batting average. They're actually hitting like 295 in the 4th inning. So it's a very odd stat, and that's kind of where the lineup flips over, typically in the 4th inning. So it's like, what is it about this team where the table setters can't, hit the side of a barn door in the 1st inning, but in the 4th inning, they're okay. What's the magic to this?
Have you noticed too that it's a lot of 1, 2, 3 quick 1, 2, 3 innings? It's almost gotten to the point where you just expect it. Sunday, they had a chance. They had runners. They had Parra on second base with 1 out, and Belt popped out, and Longo grounded out. Granted, it was a nice play by their third baseman. I think it was Gong, and then he took like 6 crow hops to throw it across the diamond, which was weird. He shuffled all the way across, but they finally had a chance. I think that was their biggest threat in the first inning all season, which I'm going to use the term is pathetic. Mm-hmm. So, it really is, and I don't know how you fix that. I don't know if that's a organizational approach to facing a starting pitcher early on. I don't know if the guys are either too antsy or too picky. I haven't, been able to pick it apart enough to find that out. But I got to be honest, I kind of want them to set the record now.
I don't mind it because it's an obscure record. It's not like
right.
It's no one's going to make a huge deal out of it. It's just a very odd thing. I mean, I know they're a poor hitting team, so they're going to have a higher chance of doing this than a normal team. But to see the discrepancy even amongst their own players across the entire game, they're like 100 points lower than any other inning, give or take. They're just, for some reason, the first inning, they're like deer in the headlights. And the significance of this is, if you're wondering, is instead of 9 innings to hit, they've essentially reduced their chances to 8 innings. They've reduced their chances to score 11%. I mean, it's very significant. When we're just talking about these games coming down to razor-thin margins, that's part of that razor-thin margin. If they were able to score a couple runs in the first throughout the season, they might have an additional win or 2. So it is a big deal. It's not like, just laugh at it. It is very significant, I think.
It is, but on the laugh at it side, I kind of do. I mean, we didn't think that the 2019 San Francisco Giants would be historic, but they set a National League record. So
There you go.
I mean, we got something to hang our hat on for 2019. I even saw Flan on Twitter be like, "Screw it, go for the record now."
Oh, did he really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, it is. It's very funny to see a lifelong baseball man be like, "This is kind of fun. Screw it, just have that happen." I mean,
Yeah,
it's not. It's frustrating, but it's kitschy.
You know what? I want to see them break it on like some crazy inside the park home run kind of thing, or 2 outs, no one on, and it's a little league home run where it's an error. They throw to first and it goes over the head, and they throw over third and he comes around and scores. Something like that, where it's like gifted to us.
I actually have a feeling it'll be a Duggar leadoff home run.
Yeah, it could be. Well, he's got what, 3 on the season, I think, or so. So he's not doing too bad for a leadoff guy. So he's shown some pop, which has actually kind of surprised me, which is good.
Which you didn't know if he was ready, and he had that bunt hit to set up Posey's homer yesterday. And it was impressive to see him just go with the situation, go with the pitching. He apparently felt he was overmatched against Archer, because he was in his first at-bat. So it was good to see him take it into his hands and just go with it. Duggar's shown just a lot of promise. That's why I think that, the strikeouts, there's a lot of strikeouts.
There's a lot of strikeouts. Yeah, there's a lot of strikeouts.
I think he leads the league in strikeouts. I might have to find that.
Yeah, he had something like 20 at-bats this week. Had 7, I think, strikeouts, but still hit 292 with 2 home runs. So it's kind of like he's getting the hits here lately, but he's still giving up a lot of ABs. And, for a guy like Farhan, who prides himself on on-base percentage and OPS, the on-base percentage ain't too great with all these strikeouts and non-contact for a leadoff guy. But
okay, he's got the most strikeouts in the National League.
He does. My God.
He's got 30 strikeouts in 91 at-bats. So 1 out of every 3 times he's coming to the plate, save, obviously walks, he's striking out.
Isn't it weird to think that a Major League Baseball player's strikeout average is significantly higher than their batting average? I mean, when we were kids, that wasn't even possible.
It's the nature of the game. I mean, we don't talk launch angles and stuff like that on here as much, but it seems to be this generation's new thing, and I got no problem with that. I totally get that hitters today are looking at launch angle, and I agree. The studies show the more the launch angle kind of raises, the better percentage chance you have of getting a hit.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a system-wide problem, but Duggar is a product of that kind of stuff. So it's possible that's part of it. But he's a kid. I think he still has rookie status. I'm not sure. But I don't know how many at-bats he had last season. But for him to be getting – he's been thrown into the fire this year. So I can handle the strikeouts now. It's if the strikeouts are this prevalent come August, September, then we'll have issues. But I don't mind leaving him up the top of the order still, because he's exciting. He gets things going sometimes. Like I said the other day, he got on with that bunt hit, which led to the Posey home run. So I like what I've seen from him so far, and the strikeouts will come down.
Let the kids play.
Except for Tim Anderson.
Let's not go into that. That's a whole maelstrom of anecdotal and opinionated statements. Some of which I agree on both sides, to be honest, but I don't want to talk about that right now. Okay, so let's talk about who's hot and who's not. Who's hot? We just talked about Duggar. 292 this week with 2 bombs and 5 RBI. Longo at 286, Part 294. Now, here's what's sad about this. These are respectable averages for a season. These are not hot averages for a week, a small sample size. Hot averages for a week are things like above 400, right? Because you have 20 at-bats, right? Oh, he went 8 for 20 this week. Because that will happen in Major League Baseball. Fans, this is what we're down to. This is the best of the best for a week. They're hitting almost 300 for a week, okay? This is what we got to go with. Pilar did hit 300 this week. He was 6 for 20. Yay! Still hitting under 200 for the season. But good week for them. This is where the offense kind of had a few notches up on the batting average. Melanson, he is, boy, we haven't even talked about him. He got crushed last year. He got crushed in spring training. Everyone is just like, he's washed up. whatever. He's definitely not their closer right now. He's just in the mix in the bullpen, but he's doing whatever Bochy asks of him, and he's being quiet about it. And I think he's kind of learned his role, and he realizes he's not the man he used to be. He's not in the same position he used to be, but he's speaking with his arm right now, and he is extremely hot. He has not given up a single run in 10 innings pitched this year. In fact, he's only given up 7 hits and 3 walks, so his whip is an even 1. Here's the context, though. There's only 3 pitchers in all of Major League Baseball with more innings than him and have not given up a run. But the most is 12 innings pitched, so it's not like a guy has gone 21 innings or 30 innings or anything like that. So he's right up there at the top in terms of 3 or 4 or 5 guys that have pitched up to and slightly beyond 10, 11, 12 innings to not have given up a run. So that's a great start for him. And of course, it can completely unravel in one appearance. He could give up 5 runs and his ERA is suddenly 6. But the point is, he's proving himself right now. Bochy is not elevating his position to closer or anything like that above Will Smith, and he's making his contribution. And so I just say keep an eye on him. He's getting outs in important situations, even if they're laser beams right at people. Okay, well, there's been a couple of those. But he's making his contribution. And so I'd say for all the Melancon haters, pump the brakes a little bit. Let's see what this guy does. He's using his strengths right now as far as I can tell when I see him pitch.
I mean, let's be honest. We've raked him over the coals on this show a few times.
Absolutely.
And I am so impressed. He is my favorite storyline of this season so far. He really, truly is. I love seeing him bounce back like this and kind of rub it in, I guess, our faces in a sense. He did something the other night. I don't remember which game it was, but he came in a 1st and 3rd, nobody out situation. He took over for somebody, and he pitched out of it. Didn't give up a run, didn't put a run on anybody else's ERA, and he pitched out of it. He seems to be using, I'm back to another cutter before, he seems to be using his cutter effectively this year and seems to be back what it used to be. I get still he's an overpriced middle reliever, but he's getting the job done. So now Bochy, when the Giants take a lead, I'm pretty sure Bochy wants to line it up Maranta, Watson, Smith. And I think by the fact that Melancon's been so good, he'll go to Maranta, because Maranta's been the guy he goes to for like the 7th inning or 6th inning. He's the first guy out of the pen when they need to keep a lead. And I think now this gives him the opportunity to balance Watson and Melancon a little bit and keep Smith on the back end. And it's such a great improvement. It's so good to see because Melancon is probably going to be a Giant the rest of the season and next season. That's a tough contract to offload. Yeah. So as long as he's being productive, I'm happy. And the guys, they all seem to like him. He seems to have a good personality. Yeah. And you always want to root for guys like that. So, I'm not going to apologize for raking him over the coals in the past because, frankly, he deserved it. But it's just fantastic to see him kind of shoving in our faces lately. I'm rooting for him so hard this year. I want to see how long he can keep this scoreless streak going.
Well, I had a conversation with him at last year's media day in 2018, and the dude is in impeccable shape. And I talked to him a little bit off camera about his workouts and his diet and how he takes care of his body. I mean, he was throwing terms at me that I didn't understand, and I feel like I'm kind of up on the nutrition lexicon of the day. And so, I mean, he is seriously committed to his sport, seriously committed to his fitness and health and his conditioning. So, there's no question that he takes care of himself and he tries his hardest to perform out there on the field. And he talked about meditating and relaxation CDs, and he does yoga, and he does it all. So he's fully committed. He's not some schmuck who's just relying on some good genes that God gave him to go out there and earn his money. He really does care. So, you kind of have that behind, at least my knowledge, and kind of I do root for the guy. And to see him lay that egg, in the past year and a half has been rough, because you think this guy, he's going to be the next, closer for the Giants, and he ends up what I think the previous 6 years before they signed him, he had the lowest ERA and most saves in the National League. I know there are a lot of holes in that because people were talking about his stuff and that he was just doing with hocus pocus and magic. But hey, if hocus pocus and magic works, then you're going to use it. So unfortunately, it hasn't turned out so well for the Giants. But yeah, I want to see this kind of as a retribution year, a comeback year for him. So good for him. Glad to see it. And all you Giants fans should want to see it anyway. All right, so let's talk about who's not. Some of these guys keep making the list every week, Eric.
Oh, yeah. First
Crawford
one on
at
the
one.
list is somebody I'm worried about. Yeah.
Well, I want to read the overall stats too. I'll do that right after this. So Crawford for the week, 150, Belt 200, Panic 105. Now, if you look at the stats, and I'm just looking at the qualified stats, so basically these are the starters, right? These are the guys who have enough plate appearances. It's 3.1 plate appearances per game played to qualify for the batting title, right? So this doesn't include Madison Bumgarner and Pablo Sandoval and these guys who do have higher averages, but they have far fewer at-bats. These are the everyday players. Your team leader is Duggar. Team leader, 242. Buster Posey at second with 227. Longo, this is in order, 220. Para, 215. Belt, 213. Crawford, 208. And Panic with a precipitous drop-off below the Mendoza line at 177. So you have 7 regular players qualifying for the batting title, and no one is hitting over 242. And it's just, man, these are the this is your core, man. This is your core, and no one's even. You guys hit close to 300 at the beginning of the season. Just one of 7 guys should be hitting over 300 at the beginning of the season. Mathematics just say that should happen. And then everything evens out and they might hit 260 for the year. But there's always one guy, 2 guys that start out hot. No one has started out hot for the regulars. Everyone has been cold. And that has been the demise of their team batting average. And it's just, my God, if no one gets hot at all throughout the year, this is what we're looking at, man.
Well, we've talked about it, and I firmly believe in the hitting is contagious. Well, I think the not hitting is also contagious.
I think it has been, yeah.
Yeah, I really do. And, I kind of jumped in when you were mentioning Crawford because I'm starting to get a little worried about our favorite shortstop. He is on the other side of 30 now. He's 32, and he has managed 2 doubles. That's it.
Yep,
2
and
doubles.
2 RBI.
No homer. You're right. No home runs.
No triples.
2 extra base hits. That's it. And he struck out 23 times. So he personally, and I got to be honest, now and then I'm seeing him like there was a routine ground ball. I think in that 9th inning that could have been a double play to end the game that he booted to leave Kang on first to let him make that run for home. Well, I guess slow trot. And so I'm a little worried. Maybe we'll dig into this deeper on another episode, but if Crawford doesn't get it together. But I'm starting to get a little worried about Brandon Crawford, and I haven't looked at how long is left on his contract or anything like that. Yeah. It just seems like every time he comes up in a big spot, nothing's happening. It's hard to watch. And then you go to Joe Panic. Joe Panic was like, I thought he was the best hitter on the Giants a few years ago. He was the perfect number 2 hitter. He could slap the ball through. He could put one out of the park. He could shoot a gap. And I have no idea what's happened to him this season or last season.
And the spring, him and Belt were hitting over 400. Yes, I know it's spring training, everyone. Calm down. But
where did that go?
Where did it go? Yeah.
Where did that go? So, I mean, Belt, I can't get on. He's going to be Belt. He just is. And he totally got screwed this week. Yeah, he is. And he got screwed this week. I mean, you mentioned it earlier.
He had some rough calls.
First of all, Bochy gets tossed on a strike that's not a strike to Belt. Then Belt gets tossed on a strike that's not a strike to Belt. And it's just funny that Bochy's last game ever in Washington, in the area he grew up for a while, he got kicked out of. But it was just, it was some minor league fill-in umpire. It wasn't a regular umpire. I don't even remember the guy's freaking name. And I know a lot of the umpires. Like, I can identify umpires on site. And this guy, I had no idea who he was. I'd never heard of him before. And it just really struck me as a young umpire trying to say, you can't screw with me. But he was doing it wrong because the guy's strike zone was ridiculous. And it did affect the game. That game specifically, it did affect the game. And I like to say that, it can't be you have other opportunities. But if you keep taking the bat out of batters' hands, they're not going to have the opportunities. So that's why, like Belt, I don't necessarily worry about. He'll get on his hot streaks. He'll carry the team for a little bit. I mean, he leads the team with 4 home runs. Him and Pilar. So he still has the power numbers. He's got 9 extra base hits altogether. So Belt will belt, but starting to get a little concerned about our chronic in the middle of the infield, and I wonder if there'll be a correction, or if in a couple months we might be, looking at different options.
I don't have the stats up right now. I could bring them up. I remember last year he started off the season so hot. He was hitting over 300 most of the first half before he started that precipitous dip. But by then he had accrued so much momentum for the All-Star vote that he ended up gaining the starting nod. By the time the All-Star game rolled around, I think he was only hitting like 250, 255, something like that, because he started that precipitous drop-off. And then, by the end of the season, I can't remember what his final was, but it was like in the 230s or something like that. Point being, the second half that he had last year was just horrendous, and it's kind of continued into this year. So it feels like maybe you're right. Maybe he's kind of over that hill, and I love the guy. He's one of the slickest fielding shortstops that the Giants have ever had, and I don't want to see this happen. I mean, the guy's hit 20 home runs, 19 home runs in a season before. He has 2 extra base hits and 70-something ABs. So the guy's just evaporated. He's just completely evaporated, and so he needs to turn that around, because the Giants are going to do anything about him this year, especially with the season that they're going to have. But
no.
I don't know what it spells. Like you said, I don't know how much is left on his contract and what have you. But if he continues these numbers with Farhan at the helm, his days are numbered. They just clearly are. They would never continue on with a guy like Crawford if he's going to hit 210 for a year with 3 jacks at shortstop. Even if he wins Gold Gloves, it's just that's not the way that Farhan's going to roll. Certainly not with a guy that's over 30. So this could be, the very, very early beginning to the end of Crawford, unless he turns it around here in the next, 2 or 3 months. Not trying to spell any doomsday, but I think you're right about this guy. All right, so go ahead.
No, I was to say one more thing. I think, and I'm just going off the top of my head, but I think he has a full no trade clause. So if they were to do something with him, it would have to be something drastic. So I agree with you. Nothing's happening this year.
No, nothing's happening this year. Yeah, it can't. So, all right, let's see. All starters, except for D-Rod, had an ERA over 5 this week. Now, yes, this includes starters that had 1 start with 4 innings pitched, so the ERA, blah, blah, blah. But point is, basically the whole staff had an ERA over 5 this week, except for D-Rod. So, again, the pitching kind of faltered a little bit this week, even though the offense clicked up. That's why they went 2-4. All right, so I want to talk a little bit quickly about the kind of review of Major League Baseball. We've never really done this before. I don't want to spend too much time on it. It's just kind of a recap, a review of the week. So I'd say your hot player of the week, in fact, he was named, after I wrote this, NL Player of the Week, Christian Yelich. 8 home runs. It's been a long time since Barry Bonds has been on this team. It's been 12 years. You and I are used to video game numbers, right? Back in the day. We are now used to the last 3, 4, 5 years, even during the World Series years, even despite the Posey MVP and hitting 25 home runs in a year, we're still used to this Giants offense not being blistering, really since like 2002. Oh, well, I shouldn't say that. Since the Bonds years, right? Has never been a real blistering offense. You see a guy come in and hit 8 home runs in a week. You're like, okay, yeah, that's fantastic. And 16 RBI. The guy has, 13 home runs? He's 14 home runs on the year. And the Giants have 16 home runs as a team. We're getting into ridiculous territory right now, Eric. I mean, again, the Giants are barely keeping ahead of the defending NL MVP. And we're 23 games into the season. This should not be happening, but he was fantastic. Astros have won 10 in a row before losing to the A's, and they've lost 3 out of 4, actually. Mariners have the best record in Major League Baseball at 16-9. And I just kind of wanted to do a quick, review of the division leaders. Obviously, we know with the NL West, the Dodgers are up by a half game over the Padres and 2.5 over the Padres and 5.5 over the Giants. First place in the AL East is Tampa Bay, still 2.5 ahead of the Yankees. In the Central, we have Minnesota with a game ahead of the Indians. In the AL West, we have the Mariners, 1 game ahead of the aforementioned hot Astros. In the NL East, Philly is still a game up on the Braves and the Mets, a game and a half on Washington, so that whole division's pretty tight. Central, Pittsburgh, who the Giants just played, a game ahead of both St. Louis and Milwaukee, and then 2.5 ahead of the Cubbies. and then I talked about the West. So out of that whole string there, you have anything that you wanted to kind of glom on and talk about, Eric?
Two quick things. One, Seattle is kind of they're fun to watch sometimes, but I'll also be honest. We've been watching. I've been watching a lot of Texas Rangers games because of Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter, I have too. Yeah,
they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun to watch. And when it comes back to the National League, the Dodgers they look like the Dodgers again.
I know.
They look like the team that has won the National League pennant for the last 2 years. They're 7-3 in their last 10.
They had won 6 in a row, then they lost 6 in a row, and you're thinking, oh, they're coming back down to earth, and then they won 6 in a row after that. So, yeah, they're back to being where we thought they would be.
Yeah, and pretty much Tampa doesn't surprise me because the Yankees are dealing with so many injuries. The big surprise in the American League has been Boston. And the fact that they had a struggling start, but they've won 3 straight because these standings, I guess, I don't know if they played tonight. I didn't look.
Well,
they
swept Tampa Bay too. They swept the first place team. So I mean, this is where Boston can start riding the ship. It's so early in the season, but the defending World Series champion. Yeah, I mean, think about the Giants coming out. I mean, yeah, in 2015 they didn't make the playoffs, but they didn't come out as cold as the Red Sox have this year. So
right,
or Bostonians are definitely panicking.
Yeah. 2013, the Giants had like the best record in baseball, and then Angel hit an inside the park home run in the season.
And then everything went after. Yeah, that was
yeah. So I like the early season when you see teams like the Mariners and Twins up at the top of their division.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
It is.
And the Dodgers, because they're never going to win. So.
Well, last year we were writing their eulogy like a month and a half into the season, and then same crap, different year.
It is. It might be their 7th division title in a row. Ho-hum. But still no World Series, so we're still going to live on that.
Yep.
Till the day I die, till the day they win the World Series. That's
all that matters.
Or 3 World Series. Okay. So minor league report, I don't have the records and everything. I just wanted to relay one thing of note, which most of you probably know about. Joey Bart early in the week was hit by a pitch in his left hand while he was batting, and unfortunately it did break a bone in his hand, so he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. This is not a major injury. It should not set him back physically. Should heal fine, but it's the time. Of course, he's going to lose that seasoning in San Jose, so a lot of people, because of his hot start in San Jose, were thinking, oh my gosh, he might be promoted to Double or Triple A, and he might get called up when the rosters expand, because I do believe this is the last year the rosters are expanding to 40, because I believe next year they're only going to be at 26 total for the year. So, this might be his chance to kind of get some major league action before he goes back to, Double or Triple A and season a little bit more next year and become a Buster Posey coming up in 2020. But I don't know if you had any thoughts about Joey Bart. He's been hot. He's been throwing out guys left and right. He has a couple home runs. He's basically doing as well as anyone ever expected before he got hit.
Yeah, and I didn't go deep into the minor leagues this week. I just didn't really have the time to dig up some stuff. The Bart news is the biggest news right now in the system. The other thing, Ilya Ramos has also been on a tear lately, apparently. He's got 5 home runs, which is second in the PCL. So, or is he in San Jose? Is not the PCL.
He's in San Jose, too.
Yeah, it's the Cal League. Okay, yeah. So he's second in the Cal League in home runs. And Ilya Ramos is only 19 years old. So those are their 2 biggest prospects as it is. So those are the names that'll go by the timeline all the time. And that's pretty much, that's the depth of my minor league knowledge this week. I promise to have a little better next week. Jalen Miller is somebody I've had my eye on, second baseman, and apparently he's been making great strides too. But the Bart thing, it just sucks. That's all it is. And it might slow him down coming up.
It could. That's what I was worried about, is because he's out a month and a half, and he's not going to have the amount of reps for a potential call up, no matter how hot he is. So. That's kind of sad to see, but, I think he'll be reinserted back into San Jose. I was hoping to take my kids up this month to go see him, and Ramos. Still can go see Ramos. We're, 30 minutes from Municipal Stadium. I played a couple All-Star games there and some high school games there. It's a pretty cool little old park built in 1947. It's a really nice feel. Fits about 3,000, 4,000, something like that. Really cool park. So it'd be fun to see. Because, I did see Madison Bumgarner, Buster Posey, Pablo Sandoval, these guys play there. and I didn't know who they were at the time. I remember writing down their names. I have old scorecards and those kinds of things, but you never know what you're gonna find. When you're down in a single A minor league game, you're gonna see maybe some potential future stars. And so I think Joey Bart is, he's not guaranteed, but he has a high probability of being a future major league star. So would love to see him down in San Jose, and before he gets too big. Okay, so we got another game show this week, Eric.
I mean, if you're ready to play Guess That Giant, I am ready to play.
I'm ready to fail like I almost did last week. Here we go.
Well, I hope listeners, you had a chance last week, and I think you'll get a chance this week. So, welcome to this week's edition of Guess That Giant. I'm your host, Eric Nathanson, and my contestant today is the one and only Chad King. Let's get started. I just like doing that, folks, so bear with me.
I love it.
All right. This, I actually think you can get this pretty quick. This player is from Lufkin, Texas, and in 2017, he funded the rings for the Little League World Series team that came in as a runner-up.
Brandon Belt.
Bing. I don't have my Bing. Damn it. I'm not good. Guy Smiley, I am not.
I almost said Brandon Belt when you said Laughlin, Texas, because I know he's from there. So I was like, oh, but I'll wait because he's still talking.
Yeah, well, I tried to. I didn't necessarily try to make it easier this year. I had a couple other things.
No, that's not a gimme.
No.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back. That's not a gimme.
Well, it's funny because I think if I had said Nagadocious, it actually would have sparked more sooner, because Nagadocious is the town I always remember hearing that it was from.
From the high school, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to share this. Where did it go? This little stat. Brandon Belt had a verbal agreement with the Chicago Cubs coming out of high school in 2006 to be drafted in a high round and paid high round money. The Cubs bailed and didn't come through. So he got drafted by the Red Sox in the 11th round of the 2006 draft, but he did not sign and went to college instead. So Brandon Belt could have been a Chicago Cub or a Boston Red Sox. Or the next year, in 2007, he was selected by Atlanta in the 11th round of the draft and did not sign.
No.
So then,
okay, I did not know this.
Right, I didn't either. I learned this researching this. And then finally, in 2009, he was selected in the 5th round by the Giants. So there are 3 teams, basically, that had a shot at Belt before he ended up with the Giants. And I don't dream of a world, but I wonder of a world where Anthony Rizzo is the first baseman of the Giants and Brandon Belt's the first baseman of the Cubs.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
One other quick little stat on Brandon Belt. He has the most defensive runs saved as a first baseman since 2014.
Wow.
With 44. Second on the list, the aforementioned Rizzo with 40.
Rizzo.
And then Paul Goldschmidt at 39.
That's fantastic. There's so many Belt haters on social media. Yeah, the guy is hot and cold. He is not consistent. He's got holes in his swing, lots of strikeouts, gets injured, just walking down the street. But I love the guy. He is just the goofiest guy in the world, and he's a good hitter. He's pulled the Giants up by their bootstraps when they need to. He's had, momentous, moments in postseason history. He's not a consistent player, but he's an above average player. And I think fans just glom onto him in a negative context when he's in those ruts where he's going 3 for 50. It's just, and he strikes out and he slumps his shoulders, and it's like, look at the baby giraffe slumping his shoulders. I get all the memes. It's funny, whatever. But, overall, please, who else would you have considered over the last 5 years, guys? I mean, just be honest, okay? I mean, they don't have anyone else. He's above average. He's good. He's just not consistent. I think that's the biggest knock I can give on the guy.
I don't think the Belt Wars will ever end until Brandon Belt is no longer in a Giants uniform.
I think you're absolutely right about that. So I still love the guy. I'm glad he's still on the team. Unless they had some young phenom like a Joey Bart type first baseman knocking on the door. And that could be what happens, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I know Buster Posey's only signed through 2020, so he's only got a year left on his contract after this year. But if Bart is a guy who might see some action in May or June or July of 2020, becomes the primary catcher, and it forces Buster out of that position permanently, then you could see that move to first base, because Buster's one of those guys where it's hard to say, but because of his precipitous drop-off, but his ticket earning potential at the turnstiles, and him and Mad Bum, especially if he's traded, by the way, this year. Buster Posey is going to be like the only main name kind of tied to those 3 and 5 years. And there's going to be a portion of the marketing department that's going to want to keep him despite Farhan's objections. And so, maybe you could see something like, okay, we'll put Buster at first and, bench duty, and we're going to get rid of Belt. But I don't see that happening this year anytime soon.
I don't think Posey necessarily takes over this year, but I do want Giants fans to prepare for the possibility that Belt does get traded this year. He does not have a full no-trade clause.
Yes, that is absolutely a good point. He does not have a full no-trade clause, and so kind of in that foresight that Farhan has obviously had, and he cycles through players faster than, Kardashians with shoes. I mean, he absolutely could cycle him out of here fast, knowing that in 2020 we're going to have this Bart Posey first base kind of maelstrom of uncertainty, and we know who Belt is. He's an above-average first baseman. He's not a horrible guy, but he's never going to be an all-star. He's never going to be a 30 home run, 100 RBI guy. That's not who he is. So getting rid of him, especially if they trade him for value to a playoff contender, is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if they can get a reputable, middle infielder or outfielder for him. So
they do have first baseman on the roster. Tyler Austin is a first baseman.
That's true.
Aramis Garcia proved himself to be adept at the position at the end of last year and during spring training this year. Mm-hmm. So there are options. They're not sexy options. But with Belt's contract, and I closed the window already, but with Belt's contract, I have a feeling the Giants are going to try to clear some money off the books. Yeah. And he might be a really big trade bait. And I'm kind of just preparing for the inevitability, and I'm going to look into this deeper in the next couple weeks, because, like I said, he doesn't have a full no trade clause. He submits a list of 10 teams to the Giants that he does not want to be traded to. Other than that, it's fair game.
Yeah, still leaves 19 teams. All right, so you have another This Week in Giants History that you're going to be publishing about.
Yes, this week I will be looking back to April 22nd, 1991. Robbie Thompson hit for the cycle against the San Diego Padres. And I'll be honest, it was not easy to find something this week in Giants history. It's just some weird week in April. And when I stumbled upon Thompson's cycle, I went with it, because Robbie Thompson is who I copied, whose batting stance I copied as a kid, which is really ironic considering I didn't even live in the home market and we didn't have MLB TV yet. Right. But Robbie's who I wanted to be. And when I was younger, I was a second baseman because I was a little scared of the ball at first. And that all went away, obviously, years later. But Robbie was a second baseman. I was a second baseman. So Robbie Thompson's cycle from April 26, 1991 against the Padres is what I'll be diving into this week in Giants history.
And everybody, I have to say that last week's article that Eric wrote about This Week in Giants History, with the first game on the West Coast between the Giants and the Dodgers in 1958, was a really fun read. I mean, I actually learned a lot from it. It was a very entertaining read, and to see the reactions on social media, I thought was really, really cool. A lot of people appreciated that context and the research that you did. So I just want to say, for those of you that have not read it, please go back to our website at torchcast.com and go back a couple articles and look that up, because it's pretty cool. Some of the research that Eric did and some of the stuff that I didn't know about, other than the first game, we all kind of know about that, but some of the, the intangibles there, the little anecdotes and other information, I thought was fantastic. So kudos to you, Eric. I really enjoyed that article.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And fun fact that I left out of the article. In 1941, the St. Louis Browns, it was voted that they would move to Los Angeles. The vote took place on December 6th, 1941. The next day was Pearl Harbor.
Huh.
And so they shelved it. And baseball would not come to California for another 17 years.
Okay.
So it might not have
Another thing I
been the
didn't know.
Dodgers and the Giants. Right. I just couldn't work it into the piece.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
the St. Louis Browns were already exploring that possibility at the time. And now the Browns are, I believe, the Baltimore Orioles now. But
But
St.
what
Louis
if we were
Browns-
San Francisco Browns fans?
Right. I said something similar in the article. Had they decided to move to Minnesota, could be San Francisco Trolley fans. I mean, who the hell knows what the team name would be at this point? I mean, maybe they would have gone with Seals. Who knows? So I appreciate that. It was a lot of fun to research that one. And I agree with Chad. You should go check that one out if you want to learn a little history on how the Dodgers and Giants came to be in California.
All right, so coming up, we mentioned that they're going to have 2 in Toronto, but they have 2 off days this week. Today was an off day, and Thursday will be an off day. So then they come home and play 3 against the... New York Yankees.
I can't wait, though. I freaking hate the Yankees. I grew up hating the Yankees.
The evil empire is visiting for the first time since 2007. I should have had queued up the dun 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 dun. What's really cool though about this, and I'm going to publish an article this week, a little bit of part of Eric's This Week in Giants History, is I was at one of those games on that weekend in 2007. And what was so magical is the game I attended, which was planned, was Roger Clemens started for the New York Yankees. So I have these wonderful digital photographs with my then brand new Canon, DSLR against Barry Bonds, freezing the action between the two future non-Hall of Famers, should be Hall of Famers. The two PEDs, henchmen of the day. But and shots of Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera and others. And at the time, I thought it was cool. At the time, I realized how important this series was and this particular game was with Roger Clemens starting. But now I look back on these photos, which are pretty good photos. I hate to toot my own horn, shooting from where I was shooting from with a telephoto lens. Just as like, holy crap, this is awesome. I mean, it's not quite Cy Young versus Babe Ruth or anything like that, but I mean, it's like, this is awesome. So I'll be definitely publishing about that later this week, because it's been 12 years since the Yankees have visited. They have this rotation that, we go AL East, AL Central, AL West, AL East, AL Central, AL West. And every 2 times you switch off between home and away, but there are certain teams that slip out of that rotation. So that's why it's been 12 years and not 6 since the Yankees have been to Oracle Park or AT&T back in the day. So it's going to be a great 3-day weekend series. I don't think I can cover one of those games for my family, schedule. I hope to. But even then, the Giants may tell me no, because how much media is going to be attending that game.
Because it's the Yankees series, right?
Yeah, it's going to be Yankees. I mean, again, you get teams like this visiting. You get the Red Sox and the Yankees and a couple others. Obviously the Dodgers, but they're in so many times during the year that there's enough games to attend or cover. But it's going to be fun. And the Yankees aren't that good right now. They're better than the Giants, but so hopefully the Giants have the opportunity to win 2 out of 3 against the evil empire. But look for that post.
I was going to say, back to Toronto real quick. That is the return of Kevin Pillar.
Yes.
And Travis Bergen, because that's where they took him for the Rule 5 draft. But the Giants there was talk this week that Vlad Guerrero Jr. was going to be called up. He's not. He's not going to be called up for the Giants series. It looks like he's going to be called up there. He's their hot prospect, and he is good. And, I mean, he's Vlad's kid. He's going to be called up later in the week. And this just bothers me. The reason he's not going to be called up is tomorrow night's Giants game is going up against Game 7 of the Toronto Maple Leafs Stanley Cup playoffs. And the guy who owns the Blue Jays also has a half-interest stake in the Leafs television station. Excuse me, I missed the cough button. And so they're going to hold him off until the weekend. So we were so close to seeing the debut of a phenom, which seems to be a theme for the Giants this season. And then they got the Yankees coming into town, and you mentioned they're not as good. And the reason that they're not starting off so good, I'm just going to put a quick list of the Yankees that are currently on the disabled list. Troy Tulowitzki, Giancarlo Stanton, Luis Severino, Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, Aaron Hicks, Didi Gregorius, Jacoby Ellsbury, Greg Bird, Dellin Betances, and Miguel Andujar. They are all on not the DL, the IL. So
that is like most of the starting lineup. Yeah.
It is. It really is. They have an all-star team on the injured list right now.
Yeah,
so,
they do.
I mean, I'm a little frustrated. Not frustrated. I'm a little sad that we're not going to get to see Aaron Judge at Oracle, because there's been plenty of talk about how Christian Arroyo is who the Giants went with instead of Aaron Judge, and look what Aaron Judge has done. So I'm a little disappointed. Judge has got to be disappointed. He grew up a Giants fan, and Buster Posey was his guy. They were talking about it. I don't know what broadcast I was watching the other day. I watch a lot of baseball. So, it's a little – it sucks a little bit that these big names aren't going to be there. But in the overall competitiveness, it evens the field. So I'm kind of okay with it.
I was going to say.
I'm still going to root against that laundry.
You're always going to root against the Yankees. You're always going to root against the Pinstripes. But you're right. I mean, with that all-star injured list, if the Giants lose 2 out of 3 or get swept, then it's like, okay, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. I mean, you lost to a half-triple. You lost to a 4A team. You really did.
And I'm lucky. I could have been a Yankee fan. My father grew up going to Yankee Stadium. My dad used to get let in the 5th inning. He used to get let in for free. They'd let kids in for free after the 5th inning. And then if you stayed around and cleaned up afterwards, they'd give you a ticket to the next day's game. So being the baseball junkie that he was, he would do that all the time. But he still despised them, and I thank him for that so much. I could not imagine my life as a Yankee fan. Being a Giants fan, it just feels so much more pure.
We are here for your purity. All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 162 of the TortureCast. You can follow us collectively on Twitter at TortureCast. You can like us on Facebook at the same moniker. You can follow us individually at 2 Out Hits for Eric. That's with the number 2, at ChadK21 for myself. We do have an Instagram account that Eric's been manning pretty well. You can also read all of the articles we talked about and follow our podcast, download them, or stream them at torturecast.com. Eric, anything else you want to talk about? Pimp?
No,
anything.
That's about it. I'm kind of excited about these 2 games in Toronto. Being a DH advocate, I really just want fuel for my fire. So I'm kind of excited.
Not gonna talk about it.
Let's be honest. Hopefully this trip to Toronto is better for the Giants than their last trip.
I know it's coming.
But I don't know if you remember, in 2013, the Giants went to Toronto, and apparently they went to strip clubs and whatever, and it was part of the downfall of that season. Right.
Yes.
So hopefully this group of guys, granted they're not in the same position, but hopefully this group of guys doesn't fall into the same trouble. So I'm really looking forward to the next 2 days before the Yankees series.
Maybe it's not long enough for them to get into trouble, but they do have.
It was a 2-game series last time, so.
Oh, it was. Oh,
yes.
Maybe they thought. Maybe they thought, oh, it's only 2 games. We can do this.
Yeah, I mean, just.
If I recall, I remember listening to those games while I was driving. One day, anyway, driving back from Santa Cruz, and it was not going so well.
They got hammered.
Yeah,
they got hammered, and it wasn't just that they got hammered.
Isn't that weird? I can remember that from like. So long ago. I just remember they got hammered. Yeah.
6 years. Yeah, they did. They got hammered, and they played like crap. Like the fielding was horrible, the pitching was horrible. So let's hope that crossing the border doesn't seem to kill the Giants again.
Yeah. Those illegals should be kept out. Sorry. Won't dive into that. All right, so that's gonna do it for episode. Sorry, that's just not right.
Then there's something wrong with you. You're certainly not very good.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. President. All right.
I'm totally aware of that.
That's going to do it for episode 162. We'll see you next week for episode 163. Engage. Give us your comments. Tell us about crazy things to do, questions asked the players, polls we should be sending out. We love the interactions we've been having so far. We, definitely increased our engagement with the listenership, and We've, podcast pretty much every week since the start of the season. So Eric and I are digging it. And this isn't a very good team. So why? I don't know. We're into S&M. I'm not sure. But we love it. So we love this team. And we'll just continue to do this until we're very old men. And as of next week, we're both going to be in our 40s. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already halfway to 50, Eric, so don't worry.
That's all right. My wife is older than you, so you're still good.
Oh, well, there you go. All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 162. We'll see you next week. Until then, a boom.
A big thank you to everybody for listening to the Torture Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the San Francisco Giants. Follow us on Twitter at TortureCast. You can also like us on Facebook or check out our blog at torturecast.com. I also want to say thank you to Ashcon and Bailey for letting us use their song Feeling Like a Giant for our intro. For Ben Lee and Chad King, my name is Willie Dills saying, we'll see you next time.